Rather than any actual feedback from players, it's more accepting the realities of modern life. Kids these days, or even people who grew up playing Pokemon, everyone is a lot more busy. There are a lot more things competing for a person's time than there were back then. For example, there are so many free games you can play on your phone now. There's so many entertainment options, so making it a little easier to play is the reason for that. Says Junichi Masuda, the current and unfortunate director of Pokemon. There's also that Amori guy, but I'm guessing he's either a bestie and or lapdog who thinks like he does, so there's that. Where does this guy get this shit? Better yet, I find the way he thinks incredibly disconnected from reality and children for that matter. Okay, where do I start? For example, there are so many free games you can play on your phone now. Well, Junichi, decide, because the franchise is becoming more and more of a mobile experience, isn't it? Do you want Pokemon to be a mobile experience from now on, or do you want to worry about your own market and actually make some coherent Pokemon games like the days of old? I guess that explains the increasing number of hallways and corridors that you all lazily dump in the games. Huge looking cities in Galar disappoint players because then they realize that they've been got. They can only visit like 2 buildings and maybe 2 other rooms in that area. Okay, Junichi, why can't we have assholes for rivals anymore like the good old days of Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver, and Crystal? So you're saying the technology back in my day limited what you guys could do with pixels? Yeah, but why can't we have assholes for rivals anymore like the good old days? I know you all are good at dodging and deflecting. You should definitely try out for a dodgeball team, but this isn't that question about the status of the experience share in Sword and Shield. So basically you have no real answer to explain why we can't have assholes for rivals. For me personally, I feel more inspired and it's much more cathartic to beat down someone talking shit about me and just hating on me. It felt good beating Blue down. He couldn't keep his massive ego and insecurity issues in check without Grandpapa Oak spoon feeding an important portion of his Pokemon journey. Yeah, it felt good being the guy with the dad shrouded in mystery, beating down the privileged asshole. So yeah, technology aside, I think they just want to cater to the snowflake-ridden world that we live in today. It's not like Pokemon ever had any kind of worthwhile character development compared to any other RPG out there, but everything apparently must be a coddled experience for you, even if they don't know the definition of what a rival truly is. Here he is again. While giving his thoughts on Let's Go's difficulty, this is what he had to say, and it's the same bullshit he provided here. Blah blah, children play mobile games more than Pokemon nowadays, and even back then, times have changed, but Pokemon remains the same. Now you must know that there is a huge contrast between the games of old and nowadays, as well as the directors. This is the shit that proves how easily the tides can change depending on who's calling the shots. While he's mumbling all of that bullshit about children not having enough time for Pokemon games, but they have more time for mobile games because they're shorter, we had areas like Mount Moon, Mount Coronet. Ooh, yet another reason why I despise Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum with a passion. Mount Mordor, the World Islands. And hell, remember the days we had proper post-game content that we didn't have to pay an additional fee for? Yeah, like the Sevi Islands. You had 7 additional islands, 2 more if you were lucky for a grand total of 9, and all this shit ever did was offer more playtime, let alone engagement with the games. What is he not getting here? These are the things that people constantly rant and rave about missing. But according to him, the reality is children don't have enough time anymore. So again, that's why you get hallways and corridors, which are even more prevalent in Sword and Shield. That's why Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire didn't have the good old Battle Frontier that you enjoyed in Pokemon Emerald. Yet another area that people enjoyed and have been complaining about for many years now to come back to the games. Oh, that's right. Let's take a second look at this loaded statement. There's one thing in here that explains why he is 100% disconnected from reality as well as the fans, children or adults, rather than any actual feedback from players. That's it. That's all you need to see how this guy thinks and his completely uninformed mentality is, because it surely proves what he perceives as reality and making it a little easier. Let me just say, despite what you perceive, you guys need to find a better excuse that justifies and even dismisses your mediocrity, laziness, and incompetence with the games. As time marches on, it will become more and more evident, despite despite the Game Freak simps being in woeful, malicious, and spiteful denial that you're gonna want more of the fans' money while giving them less. And I think it's safe to say that with the experience share that you still can't toggle alone, that you're doing a lot worse than making the games a little easier. Better yet, when it comes to the difficulty of the Pokemon games, it's very simple. Games like Bravely Default, every single one of them, not only allow you to customize your experience concerning difficulty and many other things. Hooray for options! Since you can't please everybody, they allow you to adjust encounter rates, sound options without progressing the game and getting some stupid ass key item to do the same in a Pokemon game. And pertaining to the difficulty, well, the enemies scale with you along with the AI just being brighter. Why do people think there's a whole lot of deep physics, rocket science, etc. involved with a proper difficulty mode when the dumbest one conceived yet, but at least there was one, can be found in Black 2 and White 2 with that whole key bullshit? But yeah, it's all about giving the fans options. That's the best way to try and cater to what everybody wants. Another thing that's interesting about Junichi's disconnect is that when it comes to anything that's actually challenging in Pokemon games, it ends up being an unenjoyable, tedious, and counterintuitive piece of bullshit. The most famous of them all, I'll say, as I'm sure many of you would, are the battle facilities. What's the biggest goal in any of the battle facilities? Getting 200 wins, right? So that way you can get the rarest berries in the game. But we all know how brilliantly fair that place is when it comes to the RNG, don't we? And of course, when that inevitably happens to you, you're kicked all the way back to the very beginning. And they actually expect you to walk away from that shit with your sanity. Anyone remember the Pokethalon from Heart Gold and Soul Silver? This place is a fucking nightmare. I personally don't see why anyone would ever enjoy it, because completing this shit from top to bottom is something I don't expect sane people to do. As a matter of fact, try upgrading your trainer cards level by beating the records in all 10 of the events. Here they are right here. Let's just say these are all stylus-based games. Remember how great the DS's touchscreen and stylus were? I don't. And here are all of the stylus-based games. Now, from hindsight, this looks like a simple area, doesn't it? You just play the games and you get all kinds of rewards. But as I said before, Junichi and Friends thinks a challenge consists of the most tedious, add-in repetitive, completely unenjoyable, and counterintuitive waste of time crap. Let's just say the time you waste here will be about the equivalent of the time you'd waste trying to get 200 wins in any of the battle facilities. Anybody remember Pennant Capture? The brilliant, the completely flawless, stylus-based game that is so easy to play that getting 50 flags to get that coveted trophy is nothing but a walk in the park. Damn, I need to work on my sarcasm. Speaking of trophies, try getting 10 trust trophies. That, ladies and gents, that's 200 different medalist Pokemon, which means that is 200 different Pokemon you have to catch, bring to this dreaded fucking place, compete in all of the required events, and get all of those required medals just to get 10 trust trophies. 200 Pokemon out of 493. You have to do the same bullshit 200 times. And of course the Pokemon have to be different because you can't get the same medals on the same Pokemon. So try doing any of this shit here if you want to challenge in Pokemon games. Because again, according to this brilliant idealist right here, his definition of a challenge, even though kids don't have time for shit like that, is again a bunch of tedious, counterintuitive, repetitive, and unenjoyable waste of time trash like this. So yeah, I know Junichi wasn't calling the shots back then, but he can't sit up here and say that children suddenly don't have time anymore, but then shit like that existed anyway in the games. If you create garbage like this, of course they're not gonna have time for it. They're not gonna bother with it to begin with because it's not fun, not because they don't have time. Look at something they did right. The Pokemon World Tournament in Black 2 and White 2. Junichi, it's up to you to utilize the gamer's time properly. Oh, and what's your latest attempt at offering a challenge to players? Restricted sparring. Remember, Junichi, kids are too ADHD to put in the time for Pokemon games. Well, it seems like you're hinting at where you want the franchise to go, considering how many times you regurgitate regurgitated that rhetoric about mobile games. But you expect people to fight 90 total battles, that is 5 consecutive wins across 18 different types of Pokemon, just for a fucking t-shirt. And another thing I refuse to call anything other than bullshit is how Junichi Masuda insists on using kids as a crutch. They're not as stupid as you pretend they are. Pokemon as a concept at its core is nothing more than rock, paper, and scissors. You do a brain dead mono challenge through all 8 of the gyms. You switch it over to trials, nothing much changes at all. Everything's too predictable, everything's too remedial. Because you keep reinventing the wheel every single generation of Pokemon. Going on 25 years now. Big surprise that nothing much has changed. What is there to continuously spoon feed the children? My 6-year-old nephew and my 2-year-old niece not only have tablets and cell phones, but they have found settings, changed settings, and downloaded apps my mom and sister have yet to have a fucking clue about. My 2-year-old niece has ordered shit from the cable my sister is paying, and that shit just reminds you why parental controls exist. And because I'm the tech genius of the family, they even called me to figure shit out that they did because they don't know how to undo it. So if a 6 and 2-year-old can figure shit out, what makes you think that kids are this stupid ass creation stuck in time just like this franchise and your way of thinking that can't seem to get a franchise that is the literal equivalent of that wheel being reinvented over and over again? So as you can see, I'm clearly not a fan of this guy. I despise his extremely disconnected mentality. I feel it can only harm, not help the franchise, as if Sword and Shield isn't enough of an indication. And clearly to me, he is not the guy and never was the guy for this job. You had all of this shit in the game up to the 5th generation of Pokemon games that was longer than the hallways and corridors you know all too well in Sword and Shield and have been knowing since X and Y. That's because, ladies and gents, this is the Everstone that's still attached to the franchise. Just like his mindset, the franchise is still frozen in time. No, children are smarter than you give them credit for. They don't need everything fucking spelled out for them. You're the same 10 or 11-year-old off on a Pokemon journey, catching and training whatever is allowed to be supported in Pokemon games nowadays. You do the dumbass monotype gym challenges, get your gym badges, face the Elite Four who are a slightly stronger monotype challenge, beat the so-called champion, and rinse and repeat another generation of Pokemon because he doesn't listen to any of you. He just perceives shit. So don't be surprised if your premium Pokemon experience ends up being no longer than a mobile game experience. You can't have assholes for rivals. You can't have any difficulty modes. And his perception of reality is just as obtuse as all of that bullshit I just mentioned. If Pokemon is to ever actually evolve instead of being frozen in 1996, then the Everstone that's still attached to it needs to be removed.